So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I speak 3 languages, and I'm going to tell you why English is such a terrible language. If any of you all are familiar with the comedian Gallagher and familiar with his work, you'll know that he does a lot of, or did a lot of, linguistic comedy, meaning he would literally stop in his show, sit down, and destroy the English language. Thank you for watching the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama. Make sure that you subscribe and like the video. So, I feel for all of the people, because I'm on the other the receiving end of learning the other languages, but the people who speak other languages trying to learn English. Literally, some of the most difficult languages in the world, as far as we understand them to be difficult, are a breeze compared to English. But I don't want to talk about how the word G-O sounds nothing like the word D-O or the word T-O. That's go, to, do, all with very similar spellings. Or the word W-I-N-D and W-I-N-D, same exact spelling, 2 different words. One is a noun, one is a verb. How that even happens, only English has that weirdness in it. And I was just making a comment, although I don't practice the other languages very much, I don't speak Spanish very often, I don't speak French very often, and I very, very, very rarely ever speak Japanese. But when I speak Spanish or French, literally, it's very easy to sort of remember. I have Rule 1, which applies to mostly to 90% of the language. And then Rule 2 is you have these occasional hiccups that apply to certain words, certain verbs that you have to translate differently or conjugate differently, right? So for French and Spanish, it's Rule 1 and occasionally Rule 2. English is all Rule 2. Everything is just thrown out the window. There is no root verb. There is no nothing. And English doesn't convey what you actually think. I know that English is based on a Germanic language with a smattering of Latin origins in it. But as a language, it conveys almost nothing that you actually think, nothing that you actually feel about something. The words simply don't exist. And as the population in the United States becomes dumber and dumber and dumberer and dumberer, and they don't even take the time to actually think about words that they use, you get instances where people literally just throw in words anywhere, and swear words now take up the space for stuff about how you feel and to convey emotion about something, because now it's punctuated with a curse word. And of course, now people only use about 5 curse words. Whereas when I was a child, it was a it was a horrible instance for somebody who was very concerned about being pure and innocent and good. There was at least 50 curse words. People don't use 50 curse words anymore. They only use about 5. Think about how many curse words that you know about. Now think about that. I could tell you that there are 50 curse words. And people used to use them on a regular basis when I was a child. We were so much more illiterate back then. But English is it doesn't convey. A lot of times when I'm trying to translate from a different language into English, the English just doesn't convey it. For instance, in French, the literal translation is You have reason. Now, in English, that doesn't really mean anything to anybody. And it's not the common vernacular of that sounds reasonable, because you can use the French way of saying you have reason to mean you have a complete 100% defensible point. You are wise beyond measure. You know what you are talking about. That is completely factual. You say this all with the term you have reason in French. But we don't convey that because English is not a very complimentary language, right? We don't go around saying, it's only when you're using very flowery, old style English that you even come close to getting a proper translation from, say, one of the Romantic languages into English. English is a horrible language, and for these experts that are trying to make sure that English is defined as English and that it's all one thing. I don't even know, with Common Core, it's probably all thrown out the window and they don't even care about English anymore. But it's a horrible thing. And the more I see people using no grammar whatsoever, no punctuation, no sentence structure whatsoever, and they don't even understand common phrases like it takes one to know one, right? That's a common phrase, right? A colloquial term. It takes one to know one. I see people say it takes a bird in the hand. I mean, they just, for whatever reason, we're losing our language. We're actually losing our ability to communicate. English, from the beginning, is a bastard language and a very infantile sort of language. It doesn't convey any sort of meaning to anything, any sort of emotion. In other languages, you can actually write and the person will know exactly how you feel, exactly what you mean. In the English language, because English does not convey emotion whatsoever, you can write something in English. Somebody could come along later, read it, and interpret it as being, you are racist, you love them, you're a stalker, you don't care about them, you're evil, you're mean, you're a saint. Why? Because English does not convey any emotion whatsoever in the language itself. This is why a lot of communication online is just horrible, because English is terrible. Thank you for watching the Shakaama Live Show.